Okay, for people joining this live stream, some of you may have been at the previous live stream about PDEs. This is a very different live stream about code assistants. And we are looking at Brenton's screen here, and we're going to hear about progress in code assistants.
Yeah, so I think we're going to try to split this up between John talking and then me talking. I don't know if John wants to share his screen or not, or, if we need to bother, but yeah, so the first thing was about front end, not issues, but progress that
okay, so John, do you want to say something about this? What is this?
Okay, so the sorry, I'm readjusting things on my screen so I can see what we're actually looking at. So here's the problem that we need to solve. We need to have some way to map from Brenton's representation of the syntax tree to the representation of the syntax tree that is in the notebook. And we need this so that we can do things like, Brenton wants to tag a particular bit of syntax as needing correction, or, should be highlighted in some way or something like that. Well, you need to tell the front end what thing to tag, right?
Yep. So where does Brenton's abstract syntax tree live? It's not in it's in memory somehow in some representation. Go ahead, explain that.
Well, I mean, Brenton could probably explain better than I could, but I started by looking at the stuff.
By the way,
that Brenton...
you are super loud, John. I don't know why.
I think he's about the same volume as you.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine.
I'll whisper.
No, don't worry about that.
So the I started by looking at what Brenton is generating from the in the code parser stuff that's on GitHub. And code parser has, along with parsing strings, it can parse boxes. Yeah, if you could just throw up an example of that real quick, that would be really good. And so basically he is, breaking out things into the individual components. One of the things I noticed was that curious little association there, which is basically a part spec for each node.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, Brenton already has this information. Maybe I can make this information work to map back into the front end.
Okay, so I've got a question here. I mean, the design of this container node and all this kind of thing. Have we ever reviewed this? We haven't, have we yet?
I mean, I've brought it up. No, I mean, there's nothing been finalized, but I think modulo names of things, the structure is pretty much correct.
Okay, where does this live?
Are you saying your previous question, or are you saying the code?
Yeah, my previous question. Yeah, I mean,
in memory. You mean, this is a kernel thing. It's not, there's native code, but, you can just think of, these are just normal, these are Mathematica expressions that live, in memory.
Okay. And they're created on the fly or what?
Yeah, it's not, they read from, the file or the string, but they're separated from that. They're not, intrinsically related to anything to do with where the bytes on the disk or anything like that after the fact. So
Christopher was about.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, is there sort of a fundamental difference in what this is representing to like the box language, or is this just sort of a more convenient
There are a
format?
couple key differences. One is well, yeah, I don't feel like typing right now, but so I keep track of what I call implicit tokens, where, implicit times being the big thing, where, you might have that in the front end, and it will tell you that
But there's no box for the multiplication, but in terms of the actual sort of syntax tree, there is a multiplication.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure stuff out. There's something to do with white space going on. I don't really understand. Yeah, anyway, Forget I just showed that. But the idea is that you have, you keep track of things like these implicit tokens, and times being the big thing, nulls that are after semicolons and stuff like that, and the stuff on either side of span operators, stuff like that, they're all implicit, but they're very, very, very convenient to keep track of as if they did exist.
And the cost to keeping track of those in the box language would not be high. It's just that the box language hasn't traditionally done that.
Well, it depends on how you're keeping track of them. I mean, there are some boxes which are created and destroyed at high speed as you're typing. And if you chose to, for example, keep track of them by assigning UUIDs to them, the cost of generating a UUID every time would be high, or higher than we would be comfortable with.
Okay, question for all of this. We have several places where we have the analog of abstract syntax trees. We have that in text structure. We have that in Chris Cooley's project to do abstract syntax trees for external languages and so on. What consistency do we have between these different forms? Currently, absolutely none, I suspect. This looks like a fairly general version of these.
Yeah, like, if we move metadata to the front or the back, I mean, these things.
I understand, but we have to make decisions, right?
Yeah.
So one thing we need to do is inventory all these places where we have abstract syntax trees and just once and for all decide what our standard form for an abstract syntax tree should be. And the people, I guess it's Tony Schindler, who's working on the trees project, should also be part of that. Okay, so
one issue though is that I think that, okay, fundamentally the abstract syntax tree of the actual code is just the expression of the code, right? And like you put an activate around it or something like that.
No,
so
no,
I think
no,
right. So these contain other information is the point, right? These are not just abstract syntax trees, and they contain other stuff that depends on the project. And so I think it's, I'm not sure these can all be lumped together like that.
It's important when we're talking about the apps. I mean, yes, we can talk about full forms or, just the actual the plus expr, but with what I'm doing, it's important to maintain this level of, saying call node and leaf node still.
Right, how it was typed. Right, I mean, you care about the actual, right, this is what I mean though, is that I think what you care about is, I would argue that in most cases, the abstract syntax tree is just a representation of like,
your point is this isn't the abstract syntax tree. What Brenton is doing here is not the abstract syntax tree.
Well, this is.
No, it isn't. It's got the source positions and things in it.
Well, I mean, that doesn't mean it's not abstract. I mean, this has been abstracted in a sense from, this has the same structure as if these both have the same structure. I mean, if you ignore the metadata,
Yeah, if you ignore the metadata, but there is metadata here, which is good. Okay, listen, action from this. Let's get a summit meeting about this representation. Let's get the people involved with the trees project and these other various places where we need similar kinds of things that represent both the surface form of an expression and its structure. Okay? I mean, to me, what you've got here looks pretty reasonable, but I think we just need to decide how we're standardizing it. Okay? Because what you've got there is very, very similar to the text structure system, but not quite the same. So let's get it standardized so that we can do the same thing. You see, that thing where you give source, that's exactly like a verb phrase or something in a piece of natural language processing, right? Would have exactly that same thing of the, it needs to know where the source was for it, etc. Right? You get what I'm saying? And we've already got something very much like this, like Jerome has something very much like this. So, okay, can somebody who is dealing with?
I can get that scheduled.
Okay. All right, let's move on here. So box extract and box read are going from the box form to this form. Is that right?
So the idea, so box read is very similar to notebook read, but it has a few more options, and it's never going to give you anything like a wrapping cell expression or something like that. But the point of box read is to give you something that like in Brenton's case, to give you a set of boxes that you can analyze and generate part information from, and then you can pass that part information to box extract, or box extract, I should say, and then. So any parts that you pass to box extract will give you box objects. Once you have box objects, now you're back in the front end world, and now you can do things like add annotations, or add squiggly underlines or attach cells or something like that.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're looking at this on your screen or not. It's in CVS, so you could look at the docs on your screen if you wanted to.
Could we see them, please? Brenton, could you bring them up?
Or
I don't have...
let me share.
Yeah.
I already have them on screen.
Sorry. Yep.
Okay. Let me just hide something here before I share my screen. Okay. Is my volume better, by the way?
Yes, but go ahead and share.
Okay. So I recognize we might not have, I'm not looking for an absolutely final pass on this, but I want to make sure that, the general concepts are not objectionable in any way. So box read can take a cell object or a box object, and it will return an association with the actual boxes like you get from notebook read, and a hash. Now the boxes might be modified in a couple different ways under my design here. There might be some stripping of the boxes. So for example, when you do shift enter to send a box expression to the kernel to be evaluated, it actually strips white space comments, non-semantic style boxes, non-semantic white space, and so on.
Why is this called box read rather than box import? Well, I don't know whether, but look, box read.
It's parallel to notebook read.
But notebook read doesn't return an association with hashes in it and things. Show the notebook read documentation.
Yeah. And notebook read returns, something like this. Or, it can return boxes depending on what your selection is. Here's an example.
I would argue that the default should be to return just the boxes object from box read, and to have a second argument which lets you get that full association.
So and let me explain the reason for the hash. The reason for the hash. So this is an internal crypto hash. We compute them all the time. They're very cheap and easy to compute. And the idea is that you're going to call like in Brenton's loop. Brenton would call box read, and then he's going to do some processing on it. That processing might take time. During that time, it is possible that the user or some program, might go and modify the notebook.
I get it. I understand. I understand why you want a hash there. I'm just talking about the design here.
And so then you just feed that hash if you want to fail on a mismatch to the check hash.
But then why not have a wrapper around the boxes that is called box hash or something, or that is just a wrapper, a symbolic wrapper to the boxes when returned that has this hash information in it?
I thought this would be more in line with the sort of design you'd be interested in. I'm not. So you're suggesting box hash of boxes. Hash, something like that?
Yeah, I'm suggesting, right. The name box hash isn't probably quite right, but I mean, box hashing or something. I mean, if you just type that in, box hashing, because hash would suggest an actual action, but this is
right. Yeah.
this is just saying this is a wrapper that you could put anywhere. I don't know if this is right, but I don't think what you have is quite right because it's not parallel to notebook read. I don't think we want to get too far into this. I mean,
well, like I said, I don't feel like I need all the details worked out, but this is a direction that we can move on if we know the general direction is going to be fine.
I think it's fine, but I would recommend putting the symbolic wrapper like box hashing around the boxes that come back.
Okay.
Otherwise, because that way you can leave that in the notebook. You can do all kinds of things with it. It's not.
Okay. And so where this would be like some summary blob, sort of the typesetting is some summary blob, you're thinking?
Probably, yeah. I mean, how would it be typeset? The boxes would be, something like that. I mean, when would you see this? You'll see it when you're doing very internal operations on box.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I
wouldn't even bother with
there may be some other box operations like this that we would add, but it would be, it's going to be very low level operations.
Right. And I mean, I would say the hash could just be something which is some annotation around the expression that has a little blue thing around it with a little thing that says, hash or something. I don't know. I don't think it needs to be. I don't think that's the most important thing. Because I think that this will be seen by people doing, programming type stuff.
Yes, that's definitely true.
So I mean, as a convenience, it could just be a little thing with a little footnote for the hash. But this seems okay to me.
And then the other thing, just to be clear,
but by the way, I don't think you can use an option called check
if,
hash.
If you are passing, non-default values into here, then you would want to match them on this side because the part spec is going to change based on your stripping.
Well, why don't you have that be in the symbolic wrapper that you return for the boxes? Why don't you have box read return something with a symbolic wrapper that contains the box stripping information?
Okay, so maybe you're not understanding this. This isn't what you're going to feed back to box extract.
Why not?
This is what you're going to process to get the position specs that you want.
Yeah, okay. And then what are you going to feed back? How would you check the hash?
This is a standard extract style position spec.
No, I understand that. But when you feed it back, the OBJ for box extract.
OBJ is the same. Yeah.
But needs to have the hash, right? Box hashing needs to have the hash. Otherwise, it couldn't do a check hash.
Yeah. So So something like that. But the point being, though, is that you're going to have processed this in some way to create this.
Yeah, let's not get stuck on this. Let's do a separate discussion about this. The general direction looks fine, but I'm just suggesting if you're going to have agreement between what box read reads and what box extract extracts from, why don't you have a symbolic wrapper that contains the box stripping information so you don't have to, so you can just say it's automatic in box extract and it doesn't, and it gets carried along in the object if I didn't miss something. I mean, that's my only suggestion.
Okay.
All right, let's go back to Brenton.
Oh, yep, I'll share my screen again. Right.
So that's not the only obstacle to getting the user interface up and running, but it's the one that prevents getting even a prototype user interface up and running.
Oh, so just implement those things. I mean, they look fine.
Yes. And then there will be further stuff we'll talk about in the future about that. I mean,
by the way, if you want to have those be in an internal context, in a code assistance context or something like that, then just go right ahead with the design.
Well, I think they'll actually be useful for other people internally and probably some people externally too.
All right, okay, fine. Then we should clean the designs. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. I want to talk about the code formatter.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so I mean, was that it for you, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's good. And
okay,
then,
hurry up. Yes, code formatter, please. Let's see some stuff.
Yeah, so what I've been doing is palette and line breaking. I've been working with this sample file, llvm.m, and so opening that up in the package editor. So it's going to be useful to have a palette, I think, for formatting code in notebooks. So I've simply been adding to it as I see fit. It has not been design reviewed or anything like that yet, but there is a ticket open to, have it reviewed and designed and graphic designed and everything. But mainly people are just going to want to format current cell and format current notebook. So, you have this open.
I don't agree with the fact that we want a palette there. I think in the case of the package editor, we just have that be in the toolbar, but it doesn't matter. I want to see the functionality.
Oh, yes, that is a very good point. Yes. So, you can click inside of any cell.
Okay. All right. Fine. I just want to see. Yeah, I want to see the thing actually run on some non-trivial piece of code.
Bigger chunks here.
Yeah. So, what is it doing?
Well, so I mean, can you see this? Can you see the text changing when I click on it? So I'll click on it now, and you see.
Yeah, I see it changing, but I mean, I don't know what it's doing. I mean, we discussed all these airiness parameters and all that kind of thing. Where am I seeing all of that stuff?
Yeah. So, at least interactively through a palette, it will be hard to control these parameters.
Okay, just show me.
Requires more thinking, but at least programmatically, I can move to just showing these parameters being used programmatically, though.
Okay,
so,
all right, fine. So just select a cell.
Sorry?
Wait, select a cell and let's see it run. I mean, select a cell there.
Yep, so I mean, the cursor's just in the cell, so that's sufficient. And then I click on that, and then it adds new lines and it adds, all the.
Okay, so now. Okay, so now what happens if you change the airiness? Increase the airiness.
Well, I'm not.
This is really non-typical code. This is not code. Okay, now press format current. So.
I'm not sure if this will. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. So maximal airiness.
Okay. Okay. All right. Reduce the airiness now a bit.
Yeah. So selecting the cell again. I don't know where the inflection.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay.
But. So, a little bit less here.
That's good. This is what we wanted for the airiness thing. Now, presumably for a cell, the airiness could be done interactively. Yes, the airiness, we could just move a slider and it can change it. Yes.
That's what I'm nervous about.
Why?
Well,
that's what we got to have work.
Reading and notebook writing.
Okay, but we got to have that work, right? So whatever makes you nervous has got to be resolved.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
That's what. So what is it exactly that is?
Well, no, I just mean dynamics and notebook reading and
okay.
Writing.
You know what? We got to actually make it work. So I don't care how nervous you are. Can you show it? Can you demo it, or not?
No, it's not. I don't have it even. No, not through the palette. No.
Okay. So John.
Yeah.
John here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that makes you nervous about this?
For smallish cells, it's definitely buildable without a huge amount of effort. I mean, there are going to be performance problems once you hit a certain size, of course.
Yeah, that's fine. And we can have some heuristics for making it not interactive at that point, just like we do for manipulates, where you just move it and then, we don't have continuous action. Above some size, don't have continuous action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we can.
Okay. All right. Okay. So reparse boxes before formatting. What does that mean? What does that
mean? Yeah, I mean, wherever this will live. But the idea is that for some reason, people love going into unformatting cells and hand changing this stuff. And sometimes that results in invalid, box structures.
Okay, I get it. Okay, enough said. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, all right. So what we've discussed previously is the ability to, remind me, because it's been 2 months since we met.
Yep.
Remind me what we had concluded about the, let's see, about how things like airiness, and we had another parameter in addition to airiness. What was it?
Well, line width is, the next big one, which I'm going to show.
Okay. But what do we think the uses of these are going to be? So basically, it's you take a piece of code and it has to be dead easy to increase the airiness. Right? And presumably in a notebook other than this pure, in a regular notebook, you're able to do this also with just pure things which have line wrapping, right?
Oh yeah. I picked the package editor, but anything, yeah.
Okay, so how about Right, but let's see it from a notebook that isn't a notebook with other code in it. If I need to send you a notebook with code, go to the function repository.
I mean, I'm not logged. I don't know how.
What do you mean you don't know how?
I mean, I haven't been, what is the?
Just Google Wolfram function repository. I never remember what the address is. That's what I always do.
Okay.
Resources, Wolfram Cloud. Yeah, fine.
Okay, now go to, I don't know, multi-way system. Type it in the search. Okay, now get the first one.
Yep.
Now say source notebook.
Yep.
Okay, now you're going to have a big blob of code.
I'm not sure what's.
Well, just open it.
No, the open dialog isn't.
Oh, you're running into a bug here. You may have to quit and restart. You might have to force quit even.
Could I continue or what?
No, I want to see this. I really want to see this.
Yeah.
Can you not open it by pressing on the file, even if the open dialog doesn't work?
You might be able to drag it to the icon on the dock, but yeah.
So what should you do now? Should you just try it again? Okay.
Yeah, it came up.
Okay. Dandy. All right, let's go scroll down a bit. Okay, oh, these are pretty small. Scroll down. There's probably some bigger pieces later on. Maybe not. Okay, we'll just pick some.
Oh, there you go. No, oh, sorry. No, that's more.
Okay, there's a piece. There's a piece there.
Yeah, it fits on the screen. So yeah, the cursor's in the cell. So I'm going to click format current. I think everything will load fine. Yep. Okay, cool. Yep. Okay. So yeah, that's now been formatted.
Okay, according to your formatting conditions. Okay, as code.
Right.
Yep.
Has it been formatted as if it were in a code cell, or is it fine that it's not in code cell?
I mean, there's no distinction between code, cell, input cell. Yeah, I mean that they're formatted.
So these commas that sit on their own lines are pretty weird.
Yeah. Okay. So the whole thing is there might have been a new line in the original cell that's being.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, I mean, I'd have to go and check. I'd have to.
I don't think so. I wouldn't expect the code was written that way. Okay, so increase the airiness for this for a second.
Yeah, all the way or?
No, not all the way. Not all the way. It's going to look crazy all the way.
So I'm going to reformat now. Kind of even looks better, kind of.
Yeah, it does look better. Okay, so now increase the airiness even further.
Okay, so yeah, cursor is in there. I don't know if there's another inflection point before all the way, but I won't. It's not going to be.
Why would there be an inflection point? I mean, in other words, isn't it continuously changing the airiness parameter?
Well, I mean,
it's only when the variables change.
I mean, this is a slider, but it's only happening at like 0.25, kind of increment kind of things.
Why? Isn't it a continuously varying, weighting function?
Well, I mean, new lines either get added or they don't. I mean, this isn't really a continuous thing.
I understand that, but
there's probably some heuristic that says at this airiness level, I start making this formatting decision.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I think, Stephen, maybe you're thinking as if you were globally optimizing to fit this in 20 lines, in 23 lines, and 26 lines. I don't think that's the way Brenton's code works.
No, it's not what it's doing. Okay, go to full airiness now.
Yeah. So cursor's in there, reformat, and yep.
Okay, so I don't think this slider is quite right. I mean, I think this is interesting, right? I don't think it's quite right yet. The airiness you had below this was was obviously more sensible for this, but I think, okay, UX-wise, what we need here is something where I can just go select a cell and just in the toolbar, change the airiness, change the cell formatting. See what I'm saying?
When there is a toolbar, yeah.
Well, I know, but we're getting a toolbar, right? That's part of what we're planning for the next version, right?
I don't see how that's going to happen as part of 12.2. We are a very short time away from having to freeze and send 12.2 candidates through QA.
Well, is this going to be ready, Brenton?
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that I'm showing is shippable, yes.
Except it's not interactive. And what you're going to need for the airiness thing, it's got to be dynamic, right? So, okay, so listen, here's what we're going to do then. I mean, also we need to know how this is going to work in the cloud. Do we understand that?
I've been talking to Jan. I mean, we're thinking about, yeah, how this is going to apply, because yeah, obviously, this is not using the same notebook, API, and things are different, but underneath at the very...
Is that Jan who's about to say something? Is Jan here?
No, I was about to speak up. I would be surprised if there are fundamental challenges here. I mean, maybe with the palette and the slider, but with the round tripping and the processing, I would be surprised if there were fundamental challenges.
Well, the main thing is get the dynamic timeout, and stuff.
Yeah, okay, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
But that's palette stuff. That's not round tripping, through the cell contents through your code.
Listen. So first point is, in the package editor, you can absolutely put this stuff in the toolbar.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess Noah could help figure out the UX for how that works. I suggest, I mean, go to the package editor toolbar for 1 second. Okay. I mean, I think it's pretty easy. Just put it where your cursor is there. Something about formatting, and maybe we have a thing that says, I don't know. Noah can try and figure it out. Okay. And obviously this thing about 2 spaces, 4 spaces, 6 spaces, all that stuff, that is relevant for the package editor, is much less relevant for the notebook itself. Now, my question is it possible to fit into version 12.2 a right-click menu item to change airiness?
Yeah, that would be, I mean, it depends on, does it just run or does it bring up some kind of interface? But adding stuff to context menu, if the implementation is there, is straightforward.
Actually, just a quick question about the 2 spaces, 4 spaces tab, etc. I mean, arguably there could be sort of a global setting for that. I mean, this is not really for this meeting, but like, there's something a lot of editors do where, when you press tab, it actually types N spaces or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, arguably there should at some point be a global setting for that, and then this just inherits it.
I thought there was some kind of setting in the deep recesses.
There's a setting for tab size, but like, okay, I have this issue because I insist on setting my tab size to be 2. So it's a 2-space tab. But then whenever anyone else opens something that I've been writing, now all of a sudden everything is incredibly wide because I'm putting lots of, small tabs, but you understand? So this is why people like to have it converted to spaces. So at least it's consistent across different, people's computers and so on.
And definitely don't want to get into tabs versus spaces right now either.
Well, yeah.
Okay, but
Holy war.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, okay, but this is not relevant for a notebook that is. This is relevant for the package editor, but not for regular notebooks, right?
You were right. Yeah, I mean, it's less relevant for notebooks. Yeah.
It's better to say relevant for code cells and code style cells, and not for input style cells.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes. Well, okay. So then could we not fit some of this stuff into the right-click menu for now? And Noah could perhaps try and design something that goes in there. And perhaps the right-click menu could literally be, I mean, it would be nice to have a single click. Well, I don't know, if you say, for example, an airiness where you can reset, where you have a sticky airiness setting, and by default you can go somehow and just go to a cell and right click and re-airify it, so to speak.
I should say, if this is good enough, I don't want a right click menu. I want a keyboard shortcut.
Well, I agree.
I mean, there's a question of, how good will it be in practice, of course. But
that would be great to have a keyboard thing that says, just like you have Command Plus for increased size, increase airiness, decrease airiness. That would be very useful. That's a good idea.
Does that mean there would have to be a menu item added necessarily, or not?
Yeah.
Well, a menu item is how you discover the keyboard shortcut. It's not a technical requirement, but it's a sort of a UX requirement.
Sure.
I think that's an excellent idea. I think that'll be really nice. But then we have to figure out how you go in a decent number of steps to different airiness levels.
Well,
we obviously manage that for size changes, right? I mean, you can make continuous size changes, but yet we have presets that make sense.
I would hope, my view is that, and maybe I'm an outlier, but my view is, I want to play with airiness levels once, make a global decision, and then I just want to apply that setting over and over and over again to all my code.
I don't think you're going to want that, John.
It's what I do in other languages.
Okay. Well, maybe it just works. Okay, fair enough. Well, then. Okay.
Because what I want to do when I type in code is I don't want to think about formatting.
Oh, I agree.
I don't want to sit there saying tab, tab, tab. Does it line up? Do I have to line break here? I don't want to have to think about any of that stuff. I just type all the way off, 400 characters in, and then line break it for me.
Yeah. All right. So listen, some UX here. Seems like this airiness parameter is basically working. Good work, Brenton. Let's install it. I think the keyboard thing sounds good. I think a right-click menu is a good intermediate step, probably.
But to be clear, I'm not opposed to a right-click menu. I
understand. I think it's more useful. It's much more useful. But now, this question about stickiness to the whole notebook, I don't understand how that will work UX-wise. Then it's like the magnification.
Yeah, well, that's a good question.
Basically, it should be like the magnification setting. What I would do then is to have an extra gear menu up by magnification and have that be a setting in there.
Well, on my to-do list was to have, a notebook properties dialog. This makes sense in a notebook properties dialog.
Yes. Yes, it does. But we could look, the notebook properties dialog could come off a gear menu up there, and we could have this be the inaugural member of the gear menu.
Yeah.
Okay. Brenton, what else did you want to show? This is nice. So
John said he just wanted to have, say line breaking. So I thought that was a good segue to what the next chunk of stuff I wanted to show was.
Great. Go for it.
Open up the actual agenda. So then, so line breaking is in, and need to actually, run things again. So line width can be adjusted to any sensible value, meaning integer values greater than or equal to 2.
Okay, fine.
And what you're not seeing here is, so the very first version just did the dumb thing of putting in continuation markers at the limits and just not thinking about stuff. But I now have the next version that kind of does a sensible thing of, so by default, 10 characters before the line break would happen. You start looking at the characters and start asking.
Yeah, okay, that's a good place to break. I get it, I understand. Okay, what does safety mean?
Yeah, so that's the margin. So if I set it, I don't know, just something.
What is this for? I don't understand. Why haven't we had this for millions of years? This ability to just break. What are we seeing that's different here? This is breaking in ordinary text, not in a notebook, not with boxes. Is that right?
Correct. These are strings. Yeah.
I see. So this is a line breaker that just takes strings and it's parsing the string and figuring out where to line break it.
I mean, it's the I mean, it's I mean, internally.
So let me understand that. Do we have somebody from the cloud team here? Because they've had a line breaker that works on essentially string-like representations of expressions, right?
I don't think anyone from the cloud's here. No.
That's a shame. But you do know that fact, right, Benton?
I know that they had something. Yeah.
Well, have you talked to them? Because you need to. Because either they should be using your thing or your thing should be using their thing.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So can you make sure let's see, who's PMing here?
Evan. Yeah, I can make sure they know about this.
Okay. That's nice. All right, let's keep going.
So yeah, so Airiness combined, you can have the two. These are just 4 example chunks of code that I have.
Okay.
So you increase Airiness and, the line width you can change. But you'll notice here, there are not continuation markers at the end of every line. The line breaking is being done, semi-intelligently. So that's that. If no one else has any.
Although the example on screen has a curious line break in a comment there.
Well, I mean, but you said, yeah, well, that's not optimal. Yes, that's correct.
Just fix that. I mean, that's just a little bug.
That, yeah.
That's a little bug. Right. Someone can note that down. Okay, so now this thing here where you say code format, we have a function called code format. Is that actually a useful function? Well, at least it could be in the function repository, if nothing else.
Well, it's hard because it depends on the parser. I mean, there's a lot of dependency behind this.
So what?
Function.
So what?
Well, so the parser has native code in it. I mean, it can't really live in the function repository.
No, but it's documentation code. I mean, it can be something which is based on some internal context, but it can be exposed to users through the function repository. I don't think we want this doesn't seem like a function well cooked enough to be a standard system function.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's in its own context right now, yeah.
Right, but I'm suggesting that it is a function that will be useful to expose, where the definition in the function repository could just be code format equals backtick internal backtick blah 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 whatever. You
yeah, I mean, if that's a thing that we want, sure, yeah.
That's the thing, because it provides a documentation hook.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah,
well, this is nice. That's nice. Okay.
Quickly, if people care, what are people's opinions about actual default line widths?
What do emailers do these days?
So so the front end breaks it. Actually, I think it might be 72 instead of 70.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
And the reason for that is because of concern when you send it through an email program that you might end up with a line break that changes the semantics.
Yep, exactly.
I would do 72 characters.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of Neanderthal, and hopefully some decade we can increase that. But for now, I would do 72.
Yeah, I mean, perfectly doable. Yep.
Okay. Next item, implicit times and line continuation.
So interesting thing running into, I think this just captures the issue. Those are not the same expressions. And I don't know if there's anything to do here, but I just thought maybe this is just a general interest item, but the formatter, this is one case.
De-implicify times.
Yeah. So this is the one case where the formatter is doing something like that.
Sounds like a good thing to me.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, and that's basic. I think that's pretty much all that can be done wherever right. Yeah. So
and that's basically the plain text version of the front end's auto times feature.
Yep.
Why does it need the backslash?
Well, here, I mean, this is not optimal. I mean, obviously, inside of parentheses, you don't need it. But if these were top level,
I get it. That's enough. Okay, so basically, I think this is uncontroversial. You de-implicify the implicit times.
So yeah, I guess started the project hoping that I could get away with a clean, this is like the one thing, this is the one place that I have to do something like that.
It won't be the only place. There'll be others. There'll be some with numbers, I suspect, as well.
Well, inserting spaces to separate things out is completely fine, which I do, to maintain, separation between tokens of, underscores and stuff like that. But, this is something that's non-white space that I'm inserting.
No, I get it.
So
that's life.
Yeah,
Minifier. Let's
Yes,
look at the Minifier.
exactly.
What is the Minifier?
So so I was talking to Jan in the cloud group, as kind of a result of this formatting stuff. An easy kind of side effect is having a code minifier, which, I mean, this may or may not be useful for anyone, but JavaScript frameworks have minifiers for when they want to send plain text over the network to minimize bandwidth.
I'm well aware of minification. Yes, I think everybody in this meeting understands minification.
We have a Wolfram language minifier.
But let me see what it does. I mean, so you're just saying it's just removing white space because it's zero area.
Not just that, because that doesn't maintain semantics, because you can't just remove all white space. That's
nice. I think it's nice. I mean, that's basically a zero airiness.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's nice. I think it's
out of curiosity, is it also doing things that, I mean, there are certain things that change the structure of the expression, but like in like the one-liner competitions people have done, like if you used a function with a long name more than once, just say
it's
a
not doing
equals.
Or
no. That's very hard.
This is just pure airiness, de-airification.
Yeah.
I think it's nice. I think that's a setting, in the airiness spectrum, that's something that should be set. And I also suggest that in the function repository, one has a function called minify that just does this. And,
yeah. I mean, same idea. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Next.
These are all just kind of like wrapping up items. Just wanting to show some community interaction. I've been making regular pushes up to GitHub of the parser and the linter, and I will be adding the formatter to GitHub soon, after.
So how do people actually use the linter?
Several users love it. I get feedback from Shabolks all the time.
But I want to know, how do you use it? What do you do to run it? What do you have to do? How do I, if I want to run the linter, how do I run it?
So people run it on their code by.
I know that, Brenton. I'm asking, how do you set it up? Right. Okay. So you run Code Inspector. Then what do you do?
If there was a, whatever file, you have some file laying around, and you will get the same result as if you gave it a string of code, which I'm going to just do. It's the same thing. I just don't have any files laying around right now.
Okay.
And so what you see, this is maybe more useful for people, to get a summary, to fix things. And, the inspector has all sorts of options to control severity, in all of this. And
right. Go ahead.
Just to control how pedantic and, what kind of checks are being done, what you want to see. So, a handful.
Okay, but so hold on. When we, what is our plan? What is our roadmap for getting this into the product?
Right. So, the parser, the linter, and the formatter kind of form this kind of triumvirate in my mind that I think we just flesh out the documentation. And these are not promoted to system symbols, obviously for 12.2, but they can exist in their own.
They could be in the function repository, couldn't they?
Yeah, like you were saying. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think it'll be excellent.
Stubs, and they live in their own contexts, and people can use.
Wait. Documentation. These are self-documenting creatures. There's no documentation that's going to be terribly useful, other than just, there needs to be the right discovery interface for them. But in the end, there better not be documentation. These better be self-documenting.
There better not be documentation.
Yeah, it better be self-documenting. It better not.
There should be a reference page, but it doesn't need to be very long.
Right. But but the way people are going to call this in the case of the package editor, for example, there should presumably be a button in the toolbar that invokes this, right?
That's another, yeah, I mean, yep.
Okay. And in a standard notebook, there would be, I mean, is this another right-click type thing?
Possibly. This starts getting into the original discussion months ago about, you know, squiggly lines and how do you mark up cells and things. And we're moving towards being able to do, you know, get something like that. So formatting is different.
But more to Stephen's point, what is the trigger that causes this to happen? And I mean, there's been some discussion of like, you know, trying to do stuff in the background or something like that. I'm worried about that.
Yeah, that's for the future. And I think, look, I think for now, why don't we try and get this into the right-click menu as an experimental thing in the right-click menu?
Yeah.
Well, but the question is, you know, so we do, like, let's say we right-click something, you know, I have this, whatever, in a, you know, in an input cell, and I right-click and I do something. What's going to be the result here?
So this is, I mean, I think we kind of have a direction on this, but I'm not sure that we have time to get the thing that, you know, Stephen, that you would really like to see in.
Which is the thing is basically once you've finished, there's an OK button, so to speak, inside that box on out 13, and that OK button evaporates the lint, right?
Well, I mean, what we've been talking about is an inline lint, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're going to do it in a notebook, you know, you want the option to have, you know, markings in line that you can then expand.
I agree.
Yeah. And I, you know, I have a basic idea of how this is going to work. You know, the proposal we discussed earlier was the one missing piece that I didn't have, and now that I have that, but there's going to be some implementation time, and like I said, 12.2 is not that far away.
Fine. Well, I mean, for 12.2, I think having this be a function repository thing so people can just do this is fine. I agree. We're not going to get the full. I'm a little bit confused by. Okay, so you've got, to me, let's say you have a gear menu in the cell bracket, for example, or a right-click menu, same difference. Okay, and those cause a cell to be linted.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now some of that lintery I will dismiss by virtue of saying that's a stupid lint comment. I'm just ignoring it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have a feeling that we will want. Well, maybe we don't need this. I mean, look, once it's linted,
it will be easy to dismiss categories of things. It will be not so easy to say, you know, in this instance right here, ignore this error message, just this one place in this one instance.
Oh, no. I agree.
But
what I'm saying is,
but to ignore an entire category of linter warning for the cell forever, that's straightforward.
Okay, but no, that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is, as a preliminary way of getting this in, what we want to do, like you're out 13, we say, okay, just turn this input into this big linted mess, not mess, beautiful linted form, which still needs some design work because those line 1, line 2 things are unbelievably ugly. But in any case,
what are you saying that this exists in? It's
saying,
not an output, right?
No, I know. So I'm saying you replace the input cell by this, and then you have a button in this that says, go back, delintify this, get rid of all my lint comments. I just want to go back to my original cell.
Replacing the input cell?
Well, if you trust your... Yeah, I know, that's why you guys... You're not ready for that yet.
That may very well be too ambitious for 12.2.
No, I agree. So that's why I'm saying for 12.2, just put in. But I think if we wanted to do that for 12.2, what we would do is have it in a right-click menu, replace the input cell with the linted input cell, and have in the linted form here, have a button that says delint this. Okay? But it might be too ambitious.
Yeah.
and I need to run off here, but let's see, just a few comments on our live stream. Ali on our live stream was liking the white on red Mathematica logo. I thought we did have a white on red logo.
Yeah, it's I was showing 12.1 on my system, and he was, I think, seeing the 12.1 in my
well, unless it was the prototype build had a different one. Okay.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't the prototype build.
Okay, question about the toolbar and performance hits related to the suggestions bar. The toolbar is a completely different story from the suggestions bar. The suggestions bar has to process.
I mean, we're keenly aware of any potential performance problems, and yeah, I mean, we use our product too. We don't want it slow, so
bring back the old spiky.
How old?
Yeah, right. How old? We've got a whole series of them. You can see the whole sequence going back to the most primitive. In fact, it was in that I wrote that blog post about the story of Spiky, that has the whole elaborate story that leads us to the jungles of Brazil and places like that.
Yes.
No, that's to get people to actually look at it to find out how on earth that was connected. Okay. Let's see, a question about code obfuscation. This is not really code obfuscation. This is not true. We have had various separate projects on code obfuscation, which unfortunately don't go very far because our language has, is a very open language in many ways, and it's rather, yeah. I mean, true obfuscation is hard to come by.
Yeah.
Question about minification and why we aren't just sending things over in zipped form. We have much more efficient ways to send things over than as plain text, like WXF files.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about.
Yep.
Sounds good. All right. Well, this seems to be coming along well. So I look forward to seeing it in some builds coming soon, right?
Yep.
And some and yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, terrific. Thanks. Good work. See you all. Thanks to folks on the live stream too. See you later.